Hey, it's Mr. Warren here. I thought I'd make a video to help you guys out with your homework. This is going to be exercise 7.1. We're talking all about parallel lines and transversals. Now, before we get into the new material, there's some things we have to review. First of all, you have to know what supplementary angles are. Supplementary angles are angles that add together to make 180. And they look like this. There's going to be two angles, and you can see that these two angles form a straight line. Okay, and whenever you have two angles that form a straight line, it's always going to be those two angles are always going to add together to equal 180. The next thing that we have to recall from 7th grade material is that when you have angles surrounding a point, those four angles add together to make 360. Okay, I think GeoGebra might have some rounding here, some rounding issues, but these should add up. They will add up to equal 360. The other thing that we need to remember, we're going to use this one all the time, is when you have two straight lines that cross like this, these angles here that are opposite the vertex are always equal to each other, okay? And you can see that they are here. Delete, whoops. Get rid of that. There you go. You can see that these angles are equal. So, and it doesn't matter where I move this, okay? So these two angles that are opposite the crossing, that's the vertex, they're called vertically opposite angles, and they have the same measurement. And, knowing what we know about supplemental angles, we could also say we could find this angle right here, right? Because let's call this angle X. I know that 54 plus X has to be equal to 180. And, we could easily solve for X in that case there. And that would be the same as this angle here, because these are vertical angles. So anytime you have crossing lines and you have one angle, you can actually use that information to solve for all the other angles. All right, now let's move on to the new information. Parallel lines. So here we go. I've got some parallel lines here. Let's straighten them up a bit there. Okay. So here we go. The two black lines are parallel to each other, and they are crossed by the red line, and the red line is what we call a transversal. So when you have two parallel lines and a line crosses those parallel lines, that's known as a transversal. And a bunch of angles are formed, okay? And what I want to do is I want to talk about the angles that are formed. These angles right here, this one and this one, well, if you think about it, this line's going in the same direction, and these two lines are going in the same direction. So that tells us that those two angles, what am I doing here? Those two angles are equal, okay? And these are called corresponding angles, okay? They cross the parallel lines in the same way. So these two angles are called corresponding angles, and they are equal, okay? Another set of corresponding angles would be like this one here and this one here. Okay, the same line is crossing the parallel line, so it forms the same angle there. I can't Alt-Z to get rid of these things, which is kind of frustrating. Anyway, the other type of angles that are formed are like the inside corners. If you visualize this Z here, that's the way I think of it. If you look at that Z, the inside of the Z, like that and that, those are called alternate angles, specifically alternate interior. And these angles are also equal. And if you think about it, well, I know that this angle here is equal to this angle here because they're corresponding. Well, this is the vertical angle. So whatever this is, call it X, has to be equal to that angle over there. Well, I should probably just say it's equal to angle X as well. Okay, let's keep going. The last type of angle that is formed is going to be like this angle here and this angle here. Now this is a pair of interior angles. What's the relationship there? Let's think about it. This angle is equal to this angle, and these two angles add together to make 180. So these two interior angles are supplementary. This angle plus this angle has to equal 180 degrees. All right, now that's all in your textbook. It's actually on page Where is it? Oh, it's on page 189 in the orange box there. It has that summarized there. And let's go ahead and use that to work out some examples here. Okay. So here are some examples straight from your book. Now, in this problem, what they're asking you to do is they want you to find all the missing angles. So angles P, Q, and R. Okay, let's go ahead and start with angle R would be the easiest because this right here is corresponding to this angle here. So I know that R is equal to 115 degrees. Okay, well, the next one we could do Q. I know that R and Q have to equal 180. So Q has to be equal to 180 minus 115. That's pretty straightforward. I just need to find out what do I add to 115 to make 180. 180 minus 115 is going to be 65, and that is the measure of angle Q. P and R are vertical angles, so they're going to be equal. So that means that angle P is equal to 115 degrees as well. All right, so just from that one given angle here, we could solve for all those missing angles on the bottom there. Okay, next problem. All right, now we're getting a little more difficult here. Now, it's important to recognize that, I didn't mention this before, but it's really important to mention this, that these arrows denote parallel lines, okay? So when you see like two sets of arrows here, that's going to be parallel to any other line that also has two sets of arrows. One set of arrows, like this one set of arrows, that means that these two lines are parallel. Okay, so what are we going to do? Well, let's go ahead and start off by finding x. Now, this right here is parallel to this, which means that this angle is equal to this angle, because if you're looking at it this way, then this line right here is the transversal, okay? So that means that this angle is equal to this angle, and then, so this is 72 degrees, and then I can do the same reasoning here, that now if this is the transversal, that these two angles are equal, okay, 72 and x. That means that x is equal to 72 degrees. You could probably look at that and see it, but we want to be able to reason it out a little bit. Next one, y. Well, let's see here. I know that together, I know this is 72 degrees from the last problem. I know that together, these three angles, this one, this 23 degrees, and y have to add up to equal 180 degrees because this is a straight line. Okay, so I'll write that down as a little equation. Y plus 23 plus 72 has to be equal to 180. All right, combine my like terms. Y plus 95 is equal to 180. Then we're going to go ahead and subtract 95. And that tells us that y is equal to 85. And that's it for that problem. There are no more unknowns. You're only solving for the lowercase italicized letters. Those are the variables that we're trying to find. Okay, last one. These are where they get a little bit more difficult. Now here what you've got is, let's go ahead and grab a straight line tool. This is a little bit harder. Now you've got a parallel line, right? You have two sets of parallel lines. Actually, I'll just go ahead and put those right there. That line is parallel to this line. So DE is parallel to AB. And, but this isn't a transversal. This is like two line segments, and I need to find out this angle here. Okay, so what do I do? Here's the trick. You're going to take a third line, you're going to draw it in yourself that is parallel to the top and bottom. Let me get a thinner tool here. And I'm actually going to do this on a new layer so that I can just drag it down. So it's going to go like that. Okay, and there's my parallel line. And now what I want you to do is I want you to imagine that this is two separate types of problems. So you've got this top half. Let me restate that. If you can find this angle here and this angle here and add them together, that will give you the value of x. X is like, I've broken it up into two pieces with this line. By the way, this line, I should write this down, is parallel to the top and the bottom. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to try and find this angle here. Well, this angle is an interior angle to the 20 degrees. Okay, so this is my parallel lines, my transversal right there. And this angle here, let's call it x sub 1, is interior with the 20 degrees. That means that x sub 1 is equal to 20 degrees. Remember, interior angles are, do I have to redo this whole thing? No! I'm not redoing the whole thing. I'll edit this. All right, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to find this top part of angle x, and we're going to call that x sub 1. Now, this top part is an alternate angle with 20 degrees here. Okay, an alternate angle with 20 degrees. So that means that these two angles are equal. So x sub 1, which is the top chunk of x, is 20 degrees. The bottom half here, now these two angles are supplementary. And I think you could see that if I continued this line down here, that this angle would be equal to this angle. And these two are obviously supplementary angles. They make a straight line. So that means that the bottom part of x plus 55, let's call that x sub 2 plus, so this right down here is x sub 2 plus 55 is equal to 180, and we need to solve for what x sub 2 is. So I'm going to subtract 55 from both sides. And x sub 2 is going to be equal to 180 minus 55 is going to give me 125. So x sub 2 is 125 degrees, and x sub 1 is 20 degrees, which means that this total angle here is the sum of the two. So that's going to give me that x is equal to 20 plus 125 degrees, or in other words, 145 degrees. All right, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments of this video or on Classroom, and I'll be happy to answer them. Thanks for watching. Bye.